The Adams is probably the most fished and the most popular dry fly in the entire world. This fuzzy little fly is best known for imitating adult mayflies, whether it be a blue-winged olive, a PMD, green drake, brown drake. If it's a mayfly, it's probably gonna get the job done. You're definitely gonna wanna add a bunch of these to your box in sizes 12 to 20. To tie this fly, you'll need a standard dry fly hook. Today, I'm tying this in the size that I fish the most often, size 14. Some 70 or 72 denier thread in black, or if you have gray, that works too. Some brown mayfly tails or any other tailing feathers that you've got laying around. Some Adams gray super fine dubbing, and then some high quality dry fly hackle in brown and grizzly. All right, gather up your materials. Let's get tying. To start us off, let's get our dry fly hook secure in the vise. Attach your thread by wrapping a few times forward, then working the thread back on top of itself. Now we'll trim off the tag end and wrap our thread back up to the 2/3 mark. Now let's prep our wings. Hackle feathers have two ends, the tip and the base, with the base being the thickest part and narrowing out to the tip. So if this is your first fly of the day, you can use the natural tips on the end of your hackle feathers. But if you've already cut off and used those tips, or if you're planning on tying more, what you can do is round off the previously cut end of the feather and form them into new tips like this. With our wings prepped, we'll put them together with the shiny sides facing out and attach them to the hook at that 2/3 mark, right where we left our thread. You want your wings to be about the same length as the hook shank. So I'll hold it up to the hook, get a quick measurement, then attach it to the hook with a few securing wraps. Now I'll pull back on those feathers, trying to grab as many fibers as possible. You're probably going to have a few stragglers like I did. And then form a thread dam right in front of those wings. After you've formed a tight layer of thread there in front, the wings should stand up on their own. Then trim the stragglers and clean it up a bit with your fine tips tying scissors. And if they aren't spread out slightly, you can take a few wraps in between those wings in a figure 8 pattern. Now we're going to lay down a thread base and attach the tail. Grab your tailing fibers or mayfly tails and take 1 or 2 loose wraps over the top. Then adjust them as needed. Make sure that they're 1, sitting directly on top of the hook, and 2, that they're to your desired length. I usually like my Adams to have a tail just shorter than a hook shank in length. Then we'll add a few more securing wraps and trim off the excess. Time for our dubbing. Grab some Adams Gray Superfine dubbing and create a thin dubbing noodle. Now it's super easy to overdo it on dubbing and thread wraps for dry flies. So the old rule, use half of what you think you need, is a good one to live by. We'll wrap the dubbing back to front, creating a tapered body as we go. We're going to stop just past the halfway point to leave room for our hackle. Speaking of hackle, let's prep our hackle feathers. Take your appropriate sized hackle feathers, both grizzly and brown, and trim the base fibers, leaving a good length of bare stem. First, we'll attach our grizzly feather with a few securing wraps on both sides of the wings. And then we'll do the same thing with our brown feather. And if you have any excess bare stem, just trim it off. If you want to use the rotary function on your vise, you can, but when I'm dealing with two separate hackle feathers, I find it easier to just do it by hand. First, we'll wrap our brown hackle 2 to 3 turns before the wings and 1 to 2 after. Trying to keep a little bit of room near the eye of the hook for our whip finish. Then we'll go up and over with our thread once, and take a wrap or two around the hook. With that secure, we'll trim off the excess feather. Then we'll grab our grizzly feather and do the same thing. Now grab your whip finisher and give it a good 3 to 4 turn whip finish. You can see I'm trying my best not to capture any of those hackle fibers under the thread as I do this. When I'm done, we'll trim the thread. This should be secure, but if you want to play it safe, you can add a dab of head cement or super glue to the thread using a bodkin. Just be careful not to get any of it on that beautiful hackle you just wrapped. And there you have it, the Adams. If you found this tutorial helpful and easy to follow along, check out all of our other tutorials here. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on all of our weekly tips. Thanks for watching, and live real life.